G'day, it's Luke and Harley here from GenZ Energy. We're at IMARC 2025, which is in Sydney. It's one of the largest mining shows in Australia. Guys, it's been an interesting couple of days. What are your impressions?
It's a busy show. The footprint's good. We've had some great stands shown up by a bunch of people. I mean, we've got Epiroc just behind us. And then some other really interesting displays. Seems like AI is a pretty big talking point.
Everywhere. Almost every stand,
yeah.
They're talking about AI. There's signs saying AI integration. So what's your impression of it?
Well, our impression of it is it kind of seems like a natural progression from what we were expecting to see going into the show. They've come up with some, I would say, quite innovative ways of using the AI naming brand to do quite managerial or oversight tasks.
We've been able to see the integration of AI to handle the use cases of large data sets and trying to take out a lot of the manual labour that goes into the processing and engineering of.
So how much is stuff that you could achieve with, say, ChatGPT and integrating it into your platforms, and how much is really proprietary sort of processes?
So with the use of the LLM models, we're seeing that kind of integrated a lot into the user interfacing side. And then what a lot of the companies are doing is creating their own models for the back end and the actual processing of the data, and then just utilizing the accessibility of these LLMs to kind of just put that into a user-friendly interface for the companies to use to their clients and that, yeah.
Because I am a bit skeptical on some of it. One of the companies I spoke to, they specialise in integration of all the different processes in a business. Mm-hmm. So from your supplier to your HSEQ, and they said they're using AI to integrate all of those processes onto a single platform so companies can use that information and use those controls to make very smart decisions, whereas some of them seem to be claiming our product is AI enabled.
Yeah.
And that's quite an ambiguous term, and we're seeing that a lot in the solar inverter space. We're seeing that in the solar battery space as well, where some of it actually integrates. I can think of a couple of examples where they're using AI as in it's innovative and it's actually doing AI stuff, whereas other people are claiming AI integration and AI enabled, but it's a bit of ambiguous in the benefits they're actually getting.
Yeah, unfortunately AI has become a bit of a catchphrase now, and a lot of people are using it to just generate, classify any sort of decision made by a computer as AI now, which unfortunately isn't always true to what an actual AI model is and that kind of decision making. But yeah.
What's your personal opinion on integrating AI? The business is left behind if they're not doing it at this point. Is it critical? Is it something to watch?
It's definitely something to watch for. I don't think it's completely you won't succeed without it. It's definitely subjective to the type of use case you're doing. Unlike a development piece, I definitely think it's becoming more and more important. Comparing companies to what they were 20 years ago, the amount of data that we have access to now is just so much more extreme, but the data is only useful if you can actually utilize it in a proper way. So using AI models to actually get meaningful data out of this is kind of where it seems to have its biggest impact. Yeah.
I had dinner with my brother last night, and he does computer programming.
Yep.
And he said to me he hasn't written code for a couple of years in the way he used to. He said getting the prompts correct is critical, and then vetting what it brings out. And he said that there's some ways in the prompts where you can get it to check itself in a certain way, so it will generate the code, and then he gives it a further prompt to get it to vet the code, and sometimes it'll pop up and say, actually, I did this, I didn't do this in an optimal way, I did this wrong, and then it redoes it. He said there's still a requirement for human vetting, but he said a lot of that heavy lifting in terms of just writing code has been removed.
Yeah, I mean, on our thoughts in this process as well is, whilst it is now easy to use AI, especially ChatGPT, Claude, through plugins such as Copilot, to write a lot of the raw code for you to do simple functions, functions that would be time consuming to write yourself but don't require quite innovative practice to implement. In those circumstances, AI is quite a powerful tool to be leveraged. But on the flip side of that, what we're seeing a lot of here and discussed around by a lot of the big companies that are using AI in these platforms is how this code can then be verified later, especially when you're considering external standards such as functional safety testing, SIL testing, SOC testing. A lot of these standards require quite an in-depth explanation of every line of code, not necessarily saying is it functional, but also is it necessary, is it used properly? And I think AI doesn't quite have the capability to answer a lot of those questions, hence why speaking to what your brother said, a lot of the work that he does now verifying the code that's been written and making sure that it is as efficient as it's supposed to be.
And coming to batteries and inverters, there's a SOCI 2018 legislation, which is all around security of critical infrastructure, which for, let's say, our batteries, which may be connecting to DNSP's networks, telcos networks, security of critical infrastructure means that the code needs to be secure and the design. So let's go to GenZ products now. What have we been doing to comply with that legislation?
Right. Well, I'll speak quickly on the more the BMS side of things, and I'll let you take over for the ZDC stuff. But from our perspective, from the BMS's functional safety level, the BMS code all needs to be individually vetted to functional safety standards, like IEC 62619 Annex H. It's an important standard that basically defines that the code that's being written and is housed on the BMS must always fail safe. That's the general the understanding of functional safety, and that means that a lot of what is written there has to be validated line by line, as I said before, and done to a professional external standard, which is quite hard to do with AI. Now, on the other side of things, we've got the ZDC, which, because it integrates with other systems, it also needs to be needs to be tested.
So ZDC is a monitoring and control platform.
It is, yes, yeah. So it takes the data from the BMS and then aggregates it and sends it out. But I have the one working on that, so I'll let you pass over to
On a different use case for the ZDC, because it's not directly tying into critical systems, there isn't as much of a demand for the functional safety side of it. It's definitely got a lot of impact on the cybersecurity aspect of it, as we are providing access to data and trying to display that to users with certain login credentials for different classifications of users as well. So on the other side of compliance, we definitely have a big cybersecurity vector there, trying to deploy onto customer networks and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's two sides of the same coin, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Any plans for the rest of the show? There's a few drones in this place that are really cool, and I know it's not totally relevant to what we're doing. We've built batteries for robotics companies, but I mean, it's just cool technology.
I don't think I've been able to walk past the store without Luke dragging me into the drones and seeing those ones. So
and as part of the Epiroc group of companies, I can say that Epiroc has the biggest machine. They've got one of their big dump trucks on the stand, and it is the biggest machine in the shed.
They definitely didn't show up with a small vehicle. I'm sure they chose the biggest in their lot they could fit in the building, because it looks like it just barely fits. But yeah, I suppose for the show for the rest of us, I mean, AI always comes hand in hand with automation technology, and as you've been saying, lots of drones, lots of autonomous vehicles. A lot of that infrastructure requires, as we know, low voltage power to supply for the auxiliary systems, like the telecommunication network, the control lines, the backup services. All that requires power, so that's kind of been a big interest for us. It's going around seeing how these companies are powering these systems, what UPS supplies they're using. On the other side of things, the big electronic vehicles that we've got sitting behind us do also require power. And that means that there are some very big high-power transformers and stuff throughout the building. Yeah. And terrifying currents and voltages. I mean, one of them was sitting at 1.7 kV, and then it was outputting 1.2 kA, which, for those you guys doing the maths at home, it is a fucking lot of power.
But the communications is key for the autonomous vehicles, and really that's what our products are there for. In this application, there's many applications, but for that critical communications infrastructure to make sure that it's got 100% uptime, that's really where GenZ products come into their own and our solution. So that's been proven with the Tier 1 miners, that's been proven in all the tough regions around Australia, and that's something that we're proud to promote at IMARC 2025.
Yeah. Cool.
Good to chat, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.